And we're going to cut across live to the debates ongoing in the Rajya Sabha this evening.
That is a variance with that other two visions that were there. A secular democratic republic. When after independence India became a secular democratic country, when Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated out of that anger, that assassination, when that happened, after that, sir, there was a ban on the RSS that was initiated by Sardar Patel, of all the people Sardar Patel. And what did the ban order say, sir? Which he drafted himself. On the 4th of February 1948, the Sardar says, I quote, "The objectionable and harmful activities of the Sangh have, however, continued unabated, and the cult of violence sponsored and inspired by their activities of the Sangh has claimed many victims. The latest and the most precious to fall was Gandhiji himself," unquote. Is the cult of violence that is spread. I am not saying that what they say that all these Gaurakshiksas are RSS people. They are saying no, they are anti-socials, they are criminals. Prime Minister has said so. They are criminals by night and they may be something else by the day. But why are they getting this courage and this courage to act? Because of the spread of this cult of violence. And that is what has to be contained. But that battle of the visions did not stop there. Unfortunately, many were lulled into submission thinking that was stopped there. But no, subsequently, what have we seen? Subsequently, what have we seen, sir? The brand of nationalism that was pursued even after Mahatma's assassination, even after adopting our constitution. Here I quote to you, sir, what the RSS chief at that point of time said, quote, "What is the attitude of those who have been converted to Islam or Christianity? Question mark. They are born in this land, no doubt. But are they true to its salt? Question mark. Are they grateful towards this land which has brought them up? Question mark. Do they feel that they are the children of this land and its tradition, and that to serve it, the greater good, it's their great good fortune? Question mark. Do they feel it the duty to serve her? No. No. Together with the change in their faith, gone are the spirit and love and devotion for the nation." Unquote. If this is the values that you are spreading in ideology after independence, after a constitution, what has this been, sir? Directly contradicts what you have said, the right to equality. What we've given in our constitution, the right to equality irrespective of your caste, creed or gender or sex. That's the word used in the constitution, unquote. It directly contradicts that. And this is the sort of an ideological position that has risen to this levels whereby nationalism is only equated as Hindu nationalism or Hindutva nationalism. This is not my Bharat Mata that I know, sir. My Bharat Mata...
Right, we'll keep a close eye on that argument there going on in the Rajya Sabha. But for now, let's shift our focus to what's happening in the Apex Court. Observation on Aadhaar hearing. The right to privacy is not absolute. Well, that's the latest that's coming in at this given point of time from the Supreme Court, where in that particular hearing on right to privacy that we have been speaking of, the hearing that's on the Supreme Court's constitutional bench, which is looking at this matter very closely right now on whether or not it is a fundamental right. Where right to privacy is concerned, there are more developments coming in from the Apex Court. Big Supreme Court observation that right to privacy is not absolute. Let's go across to my colleague Abhimanyu joining us with further information on what's happening in the court. Abhimanyu, please go ahead. Put this into perspective.
Well, the hearing, as of now, has been adjourned for the day, and of course, it will continue later. But today, of course, advocates for different petitioners who have filed petitions seeking clarification and also seeking that right to privacy is a fundamental right. On the other hand, of course, they are saying that that right to privacy is something which is guaranteed by the Constitution. They have repeatedly stated, even in today's hearing, for that matter, that although it's not listed as a fundamental right, yet it is a natural right which is conferred to them by the Constitution. They have also cited several previous judgments of the Supreme Court in which they have said that certain rights were not conferred as such as written in the Constitution, but rather they were granted by the Supreme Court in further pursuance of constitutional provisions. Also, it was observed by the Supreme Court bench, the 9-judge bench which was hearing this matter, that this case primarily concerns with the right to privacy, which cannot be deemed as absolute. Also, the court said that if at all a person is applying for a loan or for a medical insurance and he or she is asked to furnish details of financial accounts, transactions and medical history, to what extent would that be classified within the right to privacy? And what is the right to freedom? What is the limit to the right of freedom which is to be exercised in the same? So a plethora of issues which have been raised by the petitioners in which the hearing will continue, and of course it is expected that there would be more points of view also coming up in the times to come.
Abhimanyu, also put this into perspective for us when it comes to the entire debate of how we are looking at PAN being linked with Aadhaar. Aadhaar, of course, being a card that has all the details about an individual, his address, his all the other personal details as well. That is something many opposition parties have also been questioning. So tell us how this will really affect, because where the courts are concerned, their point of view, vis-a-vis the government's point of view, on at least this linking of PAN with the Aadhaar is also got to do with the right of privacy of an individual.
Well, not exactly and not directly, given the fact that this case primarily which is being heard today by the 9-judge bench is dealing only with the issue of privacy, and the linking of Aadhaar with PAN is the case which is to be heard by a different bench of the Supreme Court. Nevertheless, the right to privacy is an important component of the initial case which was filed before the Apex Court, and the judgment in this matter would certainly affect the hearing of the case which is being heard by another bench of the Supreme Court. So, of course, it does carry ramifications as far as the linking of Aadhaar with PAN is concerned, and of course it came as a shot in the arm for the government when the Supreme Court had earlier asked all people who already had Aadhaar cards and already had PAN cards that what was the problem in linking them if a person possessed both of them. But of course this constitutional question of linking both of them still remains and is pending before a different bench. But right now, of course, the 9-judge bench which is dealing with the issue of privacy, whether that is a constitutional right or not, that is something which is being argued in the Supreme Court. And of course several eminent lawyers appearing for different petitioners today had put forth their points, and this hearing will continue later. And of course that is something which remains to be seen in what dimension the petitioners and their lawyers will put forth their perspectives as far as their privacy is concerned. There were several other issues which were also pointed out in course of the hearing with respect to privacy and also right to freedom, that if at all a person is sending his or her children to school, that's also a right of choice and a right to freedom. That was something which was observed by the Apex Court, to which of course the lawyer for the petitioner replied that of course the choice of the school is something that will remain incumbent on the child's guardian or parent, and that is something which cannot be imposed upon the same. So there are plenty of issues which have been pointed out today in course of the hearing, and of course the Supreme Court will consider them before delivering the verdict, and still the hearing is going on. So that is something which in which we might expect new points or new ramifications also cropping up as the hearing continues further.
But Abhimanyu, I'm sure when the arguments were going on today and as they are all set to continue, the question may also arise that how subjective really privacy is. For some, for example, for some individuals, their address may not be as private an issue which it might be for another. For example, for another individual, discussing his personal life may not be as personal or private as compared to another.
Well, exactly, and there were several issues which were also observed in course of the hearing by the court, to which the petitioners had replied that if at all a person is applying for a certain service, if at all a person is applying
Abhimanyu, just hold your thoughts there. We have Mr. Majid Memon, Rajya Sabha MP, senior lawyer of the NCP, joining us over the phone line. Good evening, Mr. Memon. This entire case that's in the Apex Court right now, how do you put this into perspective, sir? Where the Supreme Court right now has observed that right to privacy is not absolute. It varies from case to case. And this, how do you see this actually adding up to the larger case of linking of everything to the Aadhaar card, sir?
Good evening to all of you.
Sir.
See, as a matter of fact, in a progressive society like ours, where, we are trying to be more assertive about our rights and execution of the legal sanction given to the rights to the citizens of India, rather than curbing them. Now, in this particular direction, the Honorable Supreme Court has acknowledged that right to privacy does exist, and it's a valuable right of an individual Indian citizen, or as also for institutions and societies, etc. But of course, it is not an absolute right, because it may be vulnerable to abuse, and it should not result in violation of anybody else's right.
Okay.
So therefore, most of the rights which are guaranteed under the Constitution of India are not absolute. You see, most of the rights are governed by certain regulations, and they have certain, restrictions, in the sense that they should not be violating law or anybody else's right. To that extent, I think Supreme Court has come out with a very good decision that right to privacy is a significant right.
But Mr. Majid Memon explained this to us. There are several concerns, and there are, of course, opposition parties also involved in this when it comes to linking of, for example, the PAN card details with the Aadhaar. PAN, as we know, has details about the bank, etc., can lead to that information. And Aadhaar, as we know, is the card that holds all information about our addresses, date of birth, name, etc., etc. The government wants to make Aadhaar as the unique identification number, the process that began many, many years ago under the UP as well. But sir, what is your point of view? If these are all linked, does it in any way infringe upon the privacy of an individual?
No, see, you can't claim privacy when your identity is required to be established for any purpose. Maybe for the purposes of getting some license, some permission or something like that, or some advantage to the government. Your identity has to be properly acknowledged by the authority, and for that purpose, to ascertain your exact identity, you may have to disclose certain things like, for example, you see, a young woman would feel offended if you ask her a date of birth. But then she has to reveal her date of birth. I'm giving an example.
Sure.
She has to give her date of birth, although she may feel a bit nervous or embarrassed.
Sure.
Isn't it?
Sure.
So therefore, giving the same simile, I would say that wherever you are going and asking any government establishment or semi-government establishment, etc., you should not feel shy of disclosing the details about yourself, and must not claim the, privilege of right to privacy.
And looking at that, sir, you say that this particular order, or perhaps observation that's come in today, that it's not absolute.